Welcome, I'm the DeadwoodJedi. This is another Raid Shadow Legends video, and we are testing on the test server Razzleberg, Razzle Dazzle, the Rabbit, Bugs Bunny, Roger Rabbit. We've got Doc up in the house here. I'm talking about Donnie Darko, Razzleberg, as I like to call him accidentally all the time. That's why I go through all the names. Anyway, the Rabbit. The Rabbit is, I think, very good for Hydra. I tested him. I'm testing him. I'm about to test him. I've done a few runs. I just finished my run, which you guys are about to see. And I have to tell you, he's not as good as I thought he was going to be. He's very good, but not as good as I thought he was going to be. And the problem is that he needs certain things to go right with him. Because we got to remember, Hydra's a full team, just like Demon Lord Clan Boss. It's a full team. You need all the buffs and debuffs in your whole team. Well, Raz doesn't really bring all that much. He brings that increased speed, and he does a great job of that, right? But that's one part. He brings Leech, which is okay, but Leech on Hydra isn't as good as we think it is. It's definitely not as good as I was thinking it was. So that's also something to kind of consider. And other than that, it doesn't bring a whole lot. It does, however, bring some damage, which is very nice. So I'm going to talk about this as we get into the run and after the run, so you guys have an understanding of how I would personally utilize him. But I'm really excited to bring him into this team, give you a little bit of a showcase, kind of show you how he works in Hydra. Because obviously, you know, if we're going to fuse him, time is now. You got to decide, am I going to fuse him or not? And I think the answer is still yes. I think it's still yes. I don't know that I'd say it's a definite yes, but it is certainly, I would advise it. I would advise it. If you have the resources to do it, I say do it. If you can't do it, I wouldn't feel horrible about it. But I do like this champion. I do think he's worth the effort and the time and the resources. So let's look at the champion, the team that I've set up here. Hey, just a friendly reminder, if you haven't already, take a moment and hit that subscribe button as well as that notification bell so you don't miss the next one of these videos that comes out. And of course, if you guys need help with your account, you can go to my website, DeadwoodJedi.com, where I'll be happy to look at your squad and make whatever improvements are needed to be made. But, you know, when I'm doing that, I still want to play my own account. That's why I use BlueStacks, which you'll find linked down below in the pinned comment and description of this video. BlueStacks is a great way to run multiple instances of the game on your computer at the same time. And if you enjoyed today's music, we have that SoundStripe link down below in the pinned comment and description of this video as well. Use code DeadwoodJedi, save 15%. So I'm not going to break down all the champions and their kits. I'll show you their gear sets at the very end. But right now, I'm just going to show you the stats so you have an understanding. But this is a Razzleberg, you know, this is about him. This is what we're doing. So I'm going to show you him real quick. We've got 260 speed here. We got 2,900 defense, 40K plus HP. These are all solid stats, right? So nothing crazy, but nothing bad either. But it's going to be enough, hopefully, to keep him alive. More importantly, I've got him fast with 260 speed. That's absolutely what I'm looking for. The more speed, the more damage. It's all good. And then 289 actually with that increased accuracy buff. I think that's going to be plenty for us to land most of our debuffs. Got good crit rate, good crit damage. All that works. Pythion here, you can see 253 speed. A lot of sustain and survivability stats we're going with here, and high resist so that he can be our mischief head target here. We also have Cantra the Cyclone. Obviously a massive debuffer, going to be our provoke champion, going to be our block buff champion, really important to our team. Accuracy is way more than we need considering the increased accuracy buff, but I'm happy to have it high. This is just how I had her built. We also have Royal Guard, who's going 221 speed, solid for us. I definitely would like that faster, but it's hard to build a real, I don't know, I had a hard time building my Royal Guard really well. He's also in Relentless gear, if that matters at all. And then Michinaki here, 257 speed, obviously going to be getting a lot of attacks from us. Good crit damage, crit rate, accuracy solid, and defense is solid. He brings a lot of utility to the team as well, so that's really good. So why these... Wait, am I missing one? Oh yeah, and then Visix. Visix is actually clutch for this team. We can open with the provoke, allowing us to build enough debuffs for Cantra to actually do her thing. And then on top of that, has that decreased speed with the ally protection, which is super valuable. I don't know which is more important, the ally protection or the decreased speed, but they both work really well here. I do have her built up with enough accuracy and resistance on this team. She's going to have some buffs on her, so that's definitely something we need for Mischief. So as we get into this run, there's a couple things that you're going to want to look out for. First off, obviously, this team is not really designed to deal with the Head of Mischief or the Head of Torment. Are we going to be able to deal with it? That's going to be a big question we need answered for this kind of a team. Because here's the thing. I have a Nightmare team all set and ready to go, but my Brutal team is kind of hit or miss, not very good. I'm actually hoping this can actually become my Brutal team on my main account. That's what I'm really banking on here. So yeah, I'm hoping that this works. We're going to see if it does or not. Obviously, I don't think either of those heads in to start. So we're going to have some time, but if they pop up, I really want to see how does this team deal with it. I also want to pay attention to the damage that Raz does, the healing that Raz does, and obviously the speed that we get out of this team. So I'm very excited to test this out and see how it goes. And yeah, so one thing I do want to show you really quickly before we do that, just because I think I'm going to forget if I don't do it now, is I do want to show you his masteries, just so you have an understanding of what I'm doing here. We're going down the support tree. We're going down the offense tree. I want as much turn meter as possible. I want that increased speed buff to last as long as possible. I want that leech debuff to stay up. This is why I'm taking the masteries I am. Are they the best masteries? No, they're just the ones I chose. They work for my team, my squad. Obviously, defensive tree is great for surviving, but I think this is good. More turn meter is better. That said, let's go ahead and jump in the run. Okay, so as we jump in the run here, we're going to open, trying to get as many debuffs as we can out, basically, is the big idea here. We're going to get the provoke from Visix to start. That's going to help Kantra before we get enough debuffs so that she gets a turn and can actually land, have her provoke passive proc. Obviously, the Poison Cloud is a big issue in the beginning, but hopefully we can deal with it. You know, we're still able to land a lot of our debuffs. Good thing is we have Hex out, so Michinaki's passive lands anyway, and now we're provoking everybody. This means those debuffs are going to stay out there, and that's really what we want. And at this point, I'm just wanting to hope that we have enough buffs out there so Pythion's passive can proc, and we don't take a ton of damage. And basically, I'm just going to be manualing, you know, when somebody gets eaten, if, you know, something comes up where I have to jump in and kind of save the team a little bit, keep it going. Sort of like I would do normally with the Hydra run. Oftentimes, I let it run on auto, but I kind of try to, you know, hover and pay a little bit of attention to make it work. But yeah, this should work pretty good. Raz is obviously going very fast. We've got the 20% speed aura, plus he's going at 260 speed. So right off the jump, we're already going, at 260 becomes 281. And then we've got, going to be adding 100 speed on top of that. There'll be 381. And then the 30% speed buff means we're going to be going over 500 speed. Essentially, we're going over 500 speed, which means a lot of tournaments. Hopefully that also means a lot of counter or ally attacks from Michinaki as well. That's the hope, right? That's the hope in this type of a thing, is to be able to have that going on. And it also hopefully means by keeping that increased speed buff up on everybody, everyone else is taking a lot of turns as well, right? I want to be able to cycle through Kantra's block buffs and decreased speed skills. The ally protection from Visix, I want to try and keep up as much as possible. So there's a lot of positives to this, and hopefully this works. Now, you know, one of the interesting things is obviously, you know, the Mischief Head. If that comes out, how are we going to deal with that? We're going to steal a lot of our buffs. Thankfully, Michinaki can steal buffs and strip the enemy, so maybe that won't be an issue. Plus Kantra blocking buffs could be good. And there's more than a couple things in here that I think could be very helpful. So, yeah, just hoping and praying that this works. Anyway, we're gonna let this run for a while, and I'll pop in if there's something important happens. I think it's so interesting how powerful Hex is in these Hydra teams. Even with the Poison Cloud, even when that boss eats one of our champions, if we can actually focus our damage on somebody else and Hex is on that head, it's kind of a better way, I think. Maybe it's not better, but it seems like a more efficient way to actually free them out and deal damage, which is pretty cool. We were able to free that head without even targeting it at all. We got Michinaki back out. So that's kind of a cool little bonus thing here. One of the interesting things I'm noticing about Raz is Raz very good, I think. And you can see we're getting plenty of attacks in here. Interesting thing is Leech is kind of a subpar healing mechanic in Hydra. The hard part is you have to deal damage to heal up, and Hydra's tough. It's hard to deal good damage against the Hydra heads without max HP hits, and so it's not as great of a heal mechanic for many of these champions. Not bad for Raz, because when he lands the Leech, he gets a heal off the skill itself, but it's not so great for everybody else all the time. We get big burst heals for people like Royal Guard that deal a lot of damage. We get pretty good heal for someone like Michinaki. But for someone like Visix or Pythion that doesn't have War Master procs because of the way I built them, or Cantress, same kind of thing, it's not as effective. And so it's kind of interesting. You do kind of need another healer, or you need to build your entire team to deal damage. And at these higher levels, that's a lot harder to do because you have pretty high accuracy or resistance requirements. Kind of interesting. This is kind of another interesting moment, I think, for this team, in that we have both the head of Torment and the head of Mischief out there. So talk about all the worst things that could possibly happen to our team. This is it. And of course, the rabbit just got eaten, so I can't even showcase him in this part of it. But I think this is very interesting. Now, the head of Mischief, obviously stealing our buffs is a problem, but you might have, one of the things that can happen is Michinaki can go ahead and strip those out. So they make a really good combination for that, I think. But as far as, dealing with that head of Torment, we don't really have anything helping us with that. And with the rabbit already being eaten, we don't even have that speed buff to really take us back up and, help counter the true fears by helping us at least burn through those debuffs, right? So that's definitely less good, I would say. But yeah, it's going to be interesting watching this and seeing how exactly it works. I don't know, but if ever we're going to have a bad run, it's going to be right now. One of my least favorite mechanics when it comes to the head of Torment and Hydra in general is that, and same thing with the head of Decay actually, is that your champions never target the right person, right? It's so frustrating to me. I want my provoke champion to target that head of Decay so I can provoke him. I don't want anybody targeting the head of Torment. I don't care about affinity because it's just going to true fear them, right? I find that a very annoying part of this game, and obviously something I wish we could have more control over in the auto functions of this. One of the things I like to do is even when it's on auto, you can see I'm targeting that head of Wrath, help free my champion. You can still target a head even when it's on auto, and I utilize that quite a bit so that I don't have to slow down the run, but I can still have the right champions targeted with all my debuffs and buffs and all that fun stuff. So that definitely helps a little bit. But I have to say, I'm very impressed overall. This team is staying alive. We are surviving. We are doing damage. I think that the decreased speed from Visix is very, very valuable. I think decreased speed is way more valuable than increased speed, as a matter of fact. And it's starting to show in this run. I've done a couple of these runs. This is maybe like my fourth or fifth attempt trying to build like an actual decent team that survives. And one of the big differences having Visix in this team, being able to place that decreased speed, allowing my champions more time, take more turns, and thus be much, much more effective. Yeah, you can see though, we're doing pretty good. Turn 72, 26 million damage. Not bad so far. I think one of the interesting things watching this, we have 3 heads that have been decapitated at this point is actually watching Raz do damage on him. He does significant damage when they're decapitated. Where I saw he did an AoE a second ago, did 170k damage around there, give or take, across the board, which is pretty good. His A1 was doing 70 or 80k a piece. That's pretty darn good. His speed just creates more multipliers, so he can do a lot of damage for your team. He's not, I think we'll see this at the end. He's not going to be on the same level as Royal Guard, Michinaki, obviously, definitely not a Krizia. But I do feel like he's a very good supplementary damage dealer, and I actually kind of think that might be the best way to utilize him. As I've said, his damage itself, his raw damage, is maybe not as impactful. I'm sorry, his raw healing isn't as impactful as might have hoped with the leech. And so I don't feel like we can utilize him as a, primary source of healing. I don't feel like, outside of the speed, he's not bringing a ton to the table. So I really think the best way to utilize him in a team like this is as a damage dealer. And then the fact that he brings other things like increased speed, like leech, I think can be really good to help supplement some of the other stuff that you might have on your team, right? And I think that's going to be the best way to go. So we just lost Pythion. It's a sad day. It's a sad day. We lost Pythion, our cleanser, one of our main healers, and more importantly, our reviver. And I think now we're going to really start to see how there's a lack of healing in this team. The leech the leech is good. It's very good. I don't know if it's going to be enough to keep us alive throughout this. So that's going to be the trick here to see, can we survive going forward without Pythion? And we just lost Visix right there. Big hit from the other heads, and no protection for Pythion. That definitely hurts considerably. And now they ate Michinaki. It's going to be a little bit of a trick at this point, but we've already done a 1 key damage on Nightmare, which I think is pretty impressive, I'd have to say. Definitely more than I was expecting, honestly. I was hoping for this kind of result, but this does exceed my expectations, considering we don't have a Krizia, we don't have Krisk, there's no Siffy in here. We've had to deal with the head of Mischief, we've had to deal with the head of Torment, so like we've had to deal with all of them, and we've been able to do that with this team. I'm actually really excited because now once I get the rabbit, I'll actually be able to build a Hydra team that should be able to 1 key brutal regardless of the head rotation, right? At least that's my hope. Well, obviously, things like affinity definitely matter, and starting heads are definitely gonna have an impact, but it does show that at least the potential of that is here with this team. And that's very exciting for me. And I think that should be exciting for those of you looking to, whether I should get the rabbit or not. Clearly brings a lot to the table. Not as much as we want, but there is a lot to like about it, as the team is, we're dead now. We're dead now. This happens. Somebody gets eaten, you die. That's how it goes. So pretty good result though, I'd say. Pretty good. Okay, 42 million damage. Definitely, that's a success in my book. If we look at the damage, we got 9 million out of Razzleberg, 16 out of Royal Guard, 14.5 out of Michinaki. A pretty solid balance right there, right? He's not going to be your main damage dealer, but he's definitely a good support damage dealer. 9 million is not a bad result, right? So, and I think this is how you'd want to utilize them. Bring in 2 strong damage dealers and then have Raz provide some utility, but also be that 3rd level of damage dealer. If you think about somebody like a Geomancer, Geo doesn't really bring a whole lot else to the table, right? There's a decreased accuracy, that's not so bad, and I guess the weaken's okay. And he does have like a single target buff strip that never goes to the right, never works on Mischief when you need it. But he has those abilities, so those are definitely good. But the fact that Raz can be in here, speeding up your team, keeping those buffs up a lot, and can do some additional damage, I think that's very valuable for your squad, and so like this is pretty solid. This is pretty solid. I'm pretty happy with this result. But I know you guys are going to ask, how did I build them? This is what I had on them. 1 Defiant set to help a little bit with the damage from the AoEs and such. A speed set and a perception set, basically. Not a whole lot going on. Now, I do have one counterattack accessory on. I'd love to get a full. The more counterattacks he gets, the more turn meter boosts he gets, the more turns he takes, right? So that's definitely something that's beneficial. But you can see I built him primarily for damage, right? I did get him to like that 3k defense and that 40k plus, 40k HP. Those are kind of benchmarks I try to have in all my champions. But the rest of it went into his attack, his crit damage, his crit rate. And, he didn't even have a ton of accuracy. Because of that increased accuracy buff, we didn't need a ton on ourselves. And you can see all those debuffs kind of ramp up over time. Everybody else kind of in, whatever sets. Michinaki's kind of a mixed set. Visix I had in, accuracy and resistance. Pythion I had in, I actually have in bolster set. I don't know why, but I have them in bolster set. And fortitude. So everybody's kind of in their own little mixed sets type of things. I think I have relentless on my royal guard as well. And I think that's pretty much all the champions that I had. But overall, I have to say I was very happy with this result. He's not the simplest champion to utilize. You do have to build an entire team around him. It is still Hydra. And because he doesn't bring in a lot of essential buffs and debuffs, it can be a little bit trickier. I think if you treat him as a third damage dealer, that is going to be the best usage of his skills. And in those situations, I think he's actually going to be very, very good. If you're struggling, though, and one of the harder things about Hydra at the lower levels is you don't quite have enough champions to bring in 3 damage dealers and still make everything work. So, if you can make that work, I think great. But even if you can't, he's still a really good secondary damage dealer. And, if you can have 2 secondary-ish damage dealers, guys that are going to hit hard, but maybe aren't perfect, like great damage dealers for Hydra, but they're okay. I'm thinking champions like Kyoku would be a good example, maybe a Sissia, or even like a, what's his name? Walking Tomb Drang. I think those would be champions that would fit really well alongside Razzleberg. And then you really only need 1 main damage dealer. And those 2 supports can help you out. Because the idea is generally you're going to need 2 DPS champions when one of your DPS gets eaten to free them. With Raz, you definitely do. When you have a max HP champion like Royal Guard or Husk, you really only need the 1. You can sometimes get away with it, usually get away with it. And so you can get away with only having 2 damage dealers. But I think, you're going to need 3 if you bring in Raz into your team. So that's just something to factor in. The healing's good, but it's not great. Unless everybody can do good damage for you, they're not all going to be able to heal up enough. So you're probably going to need a secondary healer as well. And then, of course, decreased speed is massive. It's definitely massive. And he doesn't bring that. And that's probably the one thing I would love to see added to that A2 ability. If they ever decide to improve his kit, which I don't think they do. He's still a pretty solid champion. But if they did, I would love to see a decreased speed included in that A2 ability. I think that would take him, even if on his A2 or his A1, I think that would take him to God tier, quite frankly. It would be just an amazing champion at that point if you could do that. But I doubt they're going to do that anytime soon. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this. Hopefully this gives you a fuller picture of what Razzleberg can do for your team. Obviously, I had a lot of OP champions I could have brought in and I didn't. And we also did this on nightmare difficulty. Obviously, things are a lot easier the lower difficulty that you're on. So hopefully you guys can get a pretty decent picture of what this champion can do. Yes, these are still good champions, but they're not my, top tier champions. I, just kind of give you an idea. I don't know. I'm trying my best here, guys. I'm trying my best without spending 18 hours trying to build a Hydra team like it usually takes. So anyway, hopefully you enjoyed this. And if you did, subscribe, hit the subscribe button and hit that like button. If you enjoyed the video, I'd appreciate it. That's all we got for today, guys. So till next we meet, I'm the Deadwood Jedi.